Alright guys, Master Xeon here again, and today I'm going to be making a second tutorial, and I'm going to try to make it a little bit slower. We'll just start off with a new scene here. Alright, first off we're going to delete everything, pressing A then X, and then what we're going to do today is actually play a little bit with an add-on that I like, the cloud generator. Now, one thing I noticed about using this is it takes a long time to render sometimes, and it annoys me. So I'm going to show you a way that I've been playing around using the compositioner to kind of make like an animated cloud effect. So we're going to go into edit mode, and we're going to add loop cuts, Control R, at about 3. We're going to select everything, S, X, scale it on the X-axis, make it a little larger. Then we're going to select this middle vertice, press O for proportional. Then we're going to press G, Z, roll the wheel a little bit, make it larger. Then we're going to select everything, go into wireframe mode, just so we can see it a little better. And we're just going to add just a couple more and just make some changes to it, just to give it some variety. Alright, so we're going to do it a couple more times, just to add some, and we're going to come up over this side here. Now I was actually playing with an idea yesterday that I want to make a series on here, kind of like, I was going to call it The Cube is Back, because, you know, first thing everybody always does is delete the default cube, and I remember when I first got started, my goal was to leave it there, so I put like chairs and stuff for it, make like a whole scene, so my starting scene would be like my default cube, but it'd be like sitting in a chair with a bowl of cereal. And I'd still end up deleting it, but for a moment I was just putting it in another layer, just to ease my guilt, because the cube's always been there for me. Alright, so what we're going to do is, by clicking generate, here I'm going to back up a little bit, I just now realized I jumped ahead a little bit, sorry. So we got our object here, delete the camera, and what I did was I added another camera, put the view as I wanted it, and then I held down Control and Alt and pressed numpad 0, and that pretty much centers the camera to where you want to look, which is a real handy way to get around in a scene. So I'm just going to select this vertex right here, the cube object, snap my cursor to it, and then work. Alright, cursor selection, there we go. And then I'm just going to get out of edit mode and just add a point lamp, right? Go over here to its settings, we're going to change it to sphere and lower down some settings just to make our clouds look just a little more interesting. So we're just going to put a couple of these. Then we're going to select this object, and because we added it on, we can hit generate cloud here and it'll change it to that cloud type. Now you can change it to a lot of different ones, but I've just been playing with it only on its defaults. So I'm sure with playing around y'all could get some more wispy looking kind of smoke and all that. But now we're going to render it. And, you know, my computer isn't the fastest one, especially this thing right here. It is going to die like any, let's just save ourselves a little bit of time. Let's go down to layers. We're going to disable sky. We don't want sky. And we're going to set this to render out as RGBA, because we want the background to be an alpha channel, because the real magic's going to be done with the compositioner. So my goal is pretty much to only render it once, and then like I was just playing with it, and I had some pretty interesting results that I thought were actually worthy of sharing. So we're going to just wait for this. In the meantime, while I'm waiting on it, I'm going to just jump over here to another directory and just show y'all kind of basically what it came out to. Here's the video I was just goofing off with though. But the sync was off and everything kind of happened a little fast, so this time when we go through it, I'm going to spend a little bit more time developing it so it comes out more interesting. But this is going to take a moment, so I'm going to pause the recorder. Alright guys, Master Xeon back. That actually took about 10 minutes, maybe 5, I don't know. My clock's up there at the top, it'll probably show that. So we got our basic cloud image here, so we're just going to actually press F11, let's go back over here, F3, I'm going to save it on my desktop. We're just going to call this cloud pic. We're going to save it as a, let's say this PNG. PNG save alpha, so that makes them useful. Now what we're going to do is we're now going to, let's just go ahead and save this scene. And I'll just make a new folder for it. And call it third tutorial. Because there's actually another tutorial I'm putting up, but I think I should redo it though. But it was about glare, depth of field, and motion blur, and all sorts of things in the same video, and I think it was kind of a lot to go over really fast. So we'll call this clouds tut, and we'll just save this file. Now we're going to start up a new file, Control N, and then jump straight over to the compositioner. We're going to press Control up on the directional keys to make it full screen. Click Use Nodes, Backdrop, and we're going to just delete this render layer and add in an image. We're going to open the image that we saved, and the reason I wanted to do it like this, and we're going to just go ahead and add a viewer, but the reason I wanted to do it like this is because if it rendered it out every time, it would probably take like 10 minutes a frame, and that would just be an awful way to do it. Then it'd pump that through the compositioner, which would also take a little bit of time. So, nah, we don't want to do that. So, here, we got our basic scene set up. Now, you can connect the viewer to any node just by holding Control Shift and clicking it, and it'll cycle through the different channels on them too. That's pretty interesting to know. Now, what we're going to start off with is we're going to jump out and put a mix node, and we're going to change its factor down to 0, so it has no effect on the image. It's just holding it right here, so we don't have a bunch of noodles plugged into the direct image node. So here we go. We'll connect up here, add filter. Let's see, filter blur. We'll add a couple of these, change it to fast Gaussian, Shift D, duplicate, Y to keep it on the Y axis, the viewport controls for the main view still work over here somehow, which is also pretty handy. So I'm using my middle mouse button to just move around here, and I'm just connecting it up to each of these fast blurs. I like the fast Gaussian because I think it comes out looking better slightly and a little faster. So we're going to change this one to 5. We're going to change this one to 15. And we're going to change this one to 50. Now, if we hold down Control and Shift and click each one, we see the effects that it has on each of the different blur levels. So what we're going to do is edit each of the blurs, then mix them back together. So it's going to look kind of complicated, as a setup, but it's really not, because the setups only look complicated to you if you didn't make it. Like if you put it together yourself, it all kind of actually looks justified, I guess, to say. I'm kind of ranting. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and just add in a mix node. Now, what I should have done was, let's delete these two. We're just going to develop this one, then duplicate, and just change the fast Gaussian values. So here we go, we got our mix node. We're going to change it to overlay. Set its factor to 1. And then we're going to shift A, add another input, and this one's going to be the RGB, because what we're going to do is overlay each of these blurred layers with color, then mix them together, then duplicate them, then overlay them over each other, well, I guess to just tell you in advance, and then have them animate using just a compositioner on this layer. So the render will come out looking pretty decent for just goofing off, but it'll come out fast. So we'll just connect our viewer over here. So what we got, let's change the color. Oh wow, now we got it changing colors. Awesome. So we'll just do it in red. Actually, we'll do it in blue. I found it looks kind of nice in blue. So we'll take this one. Alright, and we're going to just change this one to 0. We're just going to have one that does nothing. And then we're going to have a bunch of different degrees of blurring with different shades of blue. And the cool thing about the compositioner, and basically what I did, in case y'all didn't know, is I just held down shift, selected each one I wanted to copy, shift D, Y, and just dragged it down. So I'm just going to connect all these up. No, it's not connected right. And connect that one, and connect that one. So now we got our 5. We got our 15. And we got our 20. So if we connect these up, we got some varying degrees of clouds. Now, I want it to actually be sharp on the darkest layer and then get lighter as it goes up. So on this one, we'll lighten it. On this one, we'll lighten it more. And on this one, we'll make it just really bright. Maybe even change this to 1.5 to give it just a brighter than the rest. Alright, so our node setup's already looking pretty complicated, but from now we're only looking from here forward. We'll come back to this later. Now, to our mixes, we'll start from the bottom. So click this one and shift A. We're going to add a let's try it with an alpha over. So we want this one, the biggest glow, which each glow as it gets bigger will become part of the background, right? So on this alpha over, we want this picture to have this picture put over, because since this one's glowing more, this one's bigger than this one. So if it was the other way, this one would cover this one, and just in case someone isn't catching on. Control H, just reveal any hidden nodes. You can do that on any of them with Control H. I'll show you all that a little more here in a moment. So we're going to Shift D, duplicate it. We want to overlay this one with this one, and we want to overlay this one with this one. So it's an interesting pattern, and it's not as complicated as it looks. And so now we look at our image in the background, and it looks a little more interesting. And we could have got that same result with materials, but I like the compositioner. I like to play around in it whenever I'm dealing with phone calls at work, because you don't have to think, you're just dragging, clicking, and moving, just seeing what you can come up with. Alright, so we got this massive setup here, and look, if we jumped it over to red, the whole thing suddenly changes. Like, you notice if you change this one, you change like the glow on the outside of it. So we could give it like a blue glow. We could increase this to 40. Now would give it a more prominent glow. So we're just gonna actually, I know, silly of me to just jump everything so quickly back over to another color. Alright, so we got this image right here, and we're just gonna see if this will work. We're gonna use a mix. We're gonna take this image and mix it with itself with an add, change its factor to 1, and there we go. We got a little bit more of a brightness to it. Now, I should go back to the actual first image of the clouds and add a lamp here and here, so it just doesn't have these blank areas, because I'm not liking that. I think I made one yesterday that I'm used to replace it, just for the purpose of this looking better. I'm going to use it. And so we connect that up instead, and that is much better to me. And that's just from using better lighting. Like, I think I had an area lamp that was right in front of the camera, pointing at it with its distance lowered so it wasn't blowing it out, and that's kind of how I got that result. So continuing on, here we go. Our noodles are quite messy, but we understand it because we're the ones that put it together, so there's nothing to worry about. Now, what we're going to do is move our image over, and we're going to add in a couple of other nodes, like translate. This one is going to translate it from left to right, instead of animating like it in the render view, where we could just move the camera or the clouds objects, which, like I said, would take a long time rendering. We're just going to move the image of it. So the clouds aren't going to be cycling, but I believe if we overlay it intelligently, we could give it a look that might not give away that we just use a series of images instead. Alright, so we're going to add another one, and this one's going to be Flip X, which I got with in the flip right there. And so we're going to connect one here, and we're not going to do anything with it yet. I'm trying to think about this and plan it out. We should just set up a master control that changes this and then animate these values. So what we're going to do is just lower down the complexity of this quite a bit. So I'm going to use B box select all of these, Control G, put them in a group. Now that's an awful looking box. Okay, wait. Alt G, ungroup it. I forgot to select this very first one. There's a reason for that. Now, Control G, and then Control H. Now, we just got all of that in a nice little box, and we zoom in on this, we can rename this to Awesomeness Cloud. We're going to go ahead and save this. I'm just going to call it Compo Cloud. Alright. Hopefully the audio is better on this than the first one. Like, I'm trying to go a little bit slower, but so I don't know, sometimes I get in trances where I just click, click, click. 3D is a lot of clicking. Be prepared for a lot of clicking if you're into this. Alright, so if we press home, it'll central it in basically where the nodes are. Like as a family, like if you're just, you know, if you shrunk all this down, just lost it all, press home, everything's clear for you again. Alright, now we're going to take our node group and press tab, and that lets us view it and expand it, so that's handy. Now what we're going to do now is duplicate it, Shift D, Y, constrain it to the Y, I don't know why, I'm so insistent on it, and actually Control, cut it. If you hold Control, you can cut noodles. That's kind of cool too, you know. I don't use it too much. I hate to cut up all my noodles. I spent so much time placing it. So we're going to connect up our flip, and then we'll connect this. So that way we can animate and translate both values. Alright, now we're going to select this node group, Shift A, add an alpha over. And then we're going to connect our node group up to it. As soon as I get done with this, I have to wait for this video to encode. So then I will be on Halo. If any of y'all have Xbox Live, feel free to add me. DeathGear00. On PSN, it's Finale X, which I spend most of my time on there playing Call of Duty. So now we got two different cloud images put together. Here's where the beauty happens. We're going to press I and set a keyframe for these values on the very first layer. We're going to use Control Up to get out of compositioning view, and we're going to go over here where our timeline is in the corner. We just want this to be 100 frames, and we're going to hover our mouse over the timeline, press Shift left to go to the end of the timeline where you set your parameter to end at, and press E to just make sure it ends there. Now we're going to go back into this. Well, press Shift left to go all the way back to the first frame, and we're just going to go through it and just animate it, just I guess randomly. Actually, let's find out the values for here and gone. So we're on frame 1, press up once to go to frame 10, and just move it. Wait, not that one. We just want to find out what it takes to make it go out the image. And for this one, we're just going to move this one out the way, because whatever this one's value is, this one's just the inverse, so it doesn't matter. Alright, now we continue backing it up. Continue backing it up, and I bet this is the exact image dimensions that move it out the same. So I probably should check that. Silly me, but whatever. Continue moving it along. Alright, 933.2 is good enough. We're going to set a keyframe for that. Set this one to 933.2 and press I. Now those are just the values for moving them on this particular one. This one's negative and this one's positive. If y'all follow me exactly and have the same dimensions, then just making sure there. Alright, so if we just press back, we get cloudage. Alright, let's go back to the first frame. Alright, so we can also play with the Y. So if we move it negative, we can make it move up and down. Now see, what I think we should do is make a whole bunch of these, scale them different sizes, and overlay it so it's a cloudy intro. And it would have a really quick rendering time, basically, is I guess what I'm getting at here with this tutorial. So let's continue. Alright, so I set a keyframe for that, and there we go, and then we'll set this back to 0. Let's see what happened here. Okay, I'm on frame 10. Alright, so on frame 0, all is well. These clouds are 145 down. So on frame 10, where it's 933, we're going to set this to 0 and I for keyframe it. And we're going to set this one for negative 145. And then we're going to I keyframe it, go back to frame 1. And if we just render this out, we're just pumping it through every single one of these nodes, and it's duplicated in 2 groups, so it's quite a feat for it to have to go through. Now look, we can still edit these and even change the colors still, even though we set them to blue. That's like, you can change your mind at any stage you want, so check it out. We're gonna go in, add a mix, and then do my favorite, add an RGB. Ever since I've seen this in a tutorial on Blender Cookie, I've just been trying to see how far I can take it. See, and I could choose how insistent I want it to be, but that actually made it look really ugly. I think we'd be better off animating the groups inside instead of brutally affecting it, because it might not work out for us, but it is possible. I probably should have used RGB curve though instead. In fact, just to make sure that I'm right, let's get a shot. Alright, that's the lightness of it. Yeah, RGB curve would have worked nicely. In fact, I think we are going to keep this result and duplicate it. Let's see, it's plugged up into this third one, so we're just going to plug this up into its third one, overlay it. And now we got these pink clouds, but I wasn't trying to go for pink though with this. Alright, we're just gonna mute those. I'm not liking what I'm getting there. Like, I don't want it to come off all pink. Now, if you hover your mouse over a node and you press M, it will mute it. Like, for example, this is this unmuted. If you hover over and press M, it will mute it, as in make it not happen in your node tree, which is a good way to just turn off nodes without, changing values or nothing. I select this, mute it. All of that's gone. Like, none of this is affecting it. So if you're having problems with your scene or something with render values being too high, like I've noticed that if I put up the blur to like 300,000, it will crash Blender. I think it's because that value doesn't make sense. So what we're going to do is let's mute these two values and just play with what we got here. Now I don't want this one to be pink though. Alright, now let's unmute it. Alright, there, we got some pretty interesting looking clouds there. Sorry about all that goofing off. We're just going to get out of the compositioner, jump over into animation, kind of zoned out there again. Alright, and sorry, went too fast again. So basically, from the compositioner, I jumped over to animation, and then hovered my mouse over this, control up, maximize it, then lower my node tree. And here we go, we see all the keyframes we set up. Let's press home so we can see it on a more zoomed in level. So here's frame 1, here's frame 10. Alright, our default value X. Alright, and what we're going to do is just duplicate it, go forward, and I'm just using box select and just moving them around. And just picking random values. Oh, I'm all having a dare moment. And we're just going to do this just randomly, just to shake it up. I'm sure that we could go into over here. I just used control up to get out of that. Jumped over here to our home to view our curves. We can actually select values here, and I just selected default X. That's the one that was moving it left to right. And I'm going to press N and choose add modifier, noise. Now if y'all haven't seen this, I believe they went over it on Blender Cookie, where he was showing how to make a light bulb effect. Now I'm just playing with the values to try to get something I like, and we're going to choose the other default X, and we're going to use noise on it. And the song playing in the background, I like this song. This song's pretty cool. We'll just keep it from getting over what we possibly want. Now, I like this one. This one's like, makes it look oozy when you're moving it. Here we go. And we'll just select these two, add a modifier. We'll put noise on this too. So y'all might not come out with the same video as me, but if y'all follow this, y'all will definitely end up with something pretty different. I guess selecting 2 didn't work, so we'll just select this one too. Let's ooze it up a little. Alright, let's get out of this. So we got our animation basically set up. Except I think that we may have ruined it. Like, I think it was supposed to move and all that, and I think we actually probably made it like, let's just render it out and see what happens. So we're just going to hold down Control. Oh wait, we don't even have keyframes to the end of our animation. So let's jump back over to animation, Control up. Sorry about that, guys. I was totally about to just put out like a 10 frame and a 20 frame, 40 animation, and that would have not been nice. I'm gonna SX and reverse them in, so I get like inverse values. Then I'm gonna SX, or no, I'm just gonna leave it. If you have your, alright, if you have your, like, let's say I select this value, these values right here, I can do Shift D, S, X, and just inverse them along themselves, but there we go. And see, I basically got this animation here. Now, my goal is to make it only 100 frames. And we'll just go ahead and render this out. Let's just see how it looks. And it actually, see, we got